Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Reiki Women podcasts. My name is Michaela. Here today with me, as always, is Bronwyn Logan and Carrie Varela. And we are here to continue exploring the system of Reiki, our experiences with it, and anecdotes from this journey. We are now just about a month away from the spring equinox. So we're in the very final throes of winter. And I'm teaching a couple of different Reiki classes this month and have been for the past season. And we started these classes deep in winter. And let me tell you, when you open up a spiritual journey in the middle of winter, people can come in with some enormous, immense piles of spiritual baggage that need cleansing. In fact, I think I got a picture of it from the first day of class. Bronwyn, throw that picture up on the screen for us, so you can get a sense of what can happen in the midst of winter. And now, just a few weeks, short weeks away from spring, here in the Central Valley of California, the birds are chirping, the buds are popping, and the whole energy of my classes has shifted. The last 2 weeks have been filled with laughter, with beauty, with spontaneous jokes and anecdotes. And this week, I was just downright giddy with this spring energy. And so we thought it would be a fantastic time to have a conversation here on the podcast about the healing power of laughter and how laughter has played a role in our Reiki experiences. So, thanks to Carrie for assembling some visual aids for us to help stimulate some laughter as we move along. And I'd love to hear from the two of you how laughter has been an ally for you in your personal or teaching journeys.
You
And
never
here's
know.
the part of the podcast where we all awkwardly look at each other to find out who's going to talk next.
Oh, I'm
Bronwyn,
gonna
it's you go, girl.
yeah. Well, the wonderful thing about laughter is that when we laugh, we really open our hearts, and we also in doing so, we really allow our lungs to, expand and work, our diaphragm to move. We really just take in, we just all this energy. It's very enlivening, and when we do that, it's when we breathe out then afterwards. So we're laughing, we're taking big gulps of air, we release, and it's really this sense of clearing. It's like we are leaving open this big cavern from breathing, and it feels so good, and it's very life enriching, full of vitality. And it really gives us that spaciousness inside of us that we often don't have, because when we feel fearful, it's like we have that sort of, the breathing is very shallow, or if we have grief, we're sobbing. But none of this is really full-bodied, and it's when we laugh, it's a very full body experience, and we have this, the whole body seems to move and shift, and especially the breath. And for me, the breath is the thing. So it is the spark of life. It carries everything, and it carries energy. So when we laugh, we are taking great amounts of breath and releasing great amounts of breath. And it's like we're really supporting our body in renewing itself, being in the flow of life, just being able to, it's a sense of letting go. And for me, the system of Reiki is all about letting go. So it's almost like a tool. So it's a wonderful thing to laugh. And, if we can find joy and awe in life, it seems to me that breath is very closely related to emotions, I guess, is what I'm saying. And if we can have that beautiful openness, it also allows our mind to be open, our emotions to be calm and clear. Yeah, it's an incredibly healthy thing to do, and it's a real beautiful form of self-healing.
Yeah, I agree. And I love, that there's this antidote out there, right? That laughter is the best medicine. And I definitely think that that's true. And times in my life where I have been fearful or full of grief, laughter is really one of those things that I can turn it to that helps me lighten the load. And being an empath, it's I've realized that I can take on a lot of stuff. And if and life can feel really heavy for me in those moments. And so I've realized that if I'm not laughing, if I'm not taking time to laugh, every day and finding something that really brings and gives you that genuine spark of humor, of joyfulness that laughter can bring, then I'm taking life way too seriously. And it also has this like kind of ego element too, because if we're not laughing, we are probably just taking ourselves too seriously. If we can't laugh at ourselves, like that's a lot better feeling than feeling like shame or remorse about ourselves or regret. We'd rather just have that sense of humor for all the ways that we're not perfect, or the ways we might spoof our intros at the Reiki Women podcasts. I do it almost every week. Anywho, but I think laughter is such a good tool to utilize. And when I was in India studying yoga therapy there, and at the end of a yoga therapy class in India, we all did laughing yoga. And it was just like 3 rounds of laughter with the whole group. And there's actually some laughing yoga classes out there where you just like laugh for a full hour, which is very therapeutic. And believe in that stuff. But I think in the United States, at least where I live, people take themselves entirely too seriously. And even in yoga classes that I teach around here, like doing kind of a laughter yoga at the end of a practice is just like, it's weird for people. People are too stuck in their head. So I think humor is that great reminder to get out of our head, into our heart. And one of the things I learned about laughter in my yogic studies is that it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're really laughing or not laughing on the inside, that your body still kind of takes in that medicine of laughter. It can shift our inner awareness pretty quickly. So that's what I think about it. Steps.
Yeah, you can have like they call it, I think, voluntary or spontaneous laughter. So spontaneous is just when something funny happens, but voluntary is when we actually make ourselves smile, and it's hard to imagine that would actually work, but they say that it does. And because when we smile, we start with our eyes, don't we? Like that's it's something that shifts and changes, and it shifts and changes our eyes, how we see, when they become soft, then we become soft, our emotions become soft, and we become looser and more relaxed and calm. And so it's interesting how just by making something ourselves do something, that can happen.
Yeah, I love the way that, both of you have named laughter as both a tool and a medicine. And that's something that, we can apply intentionally to our own lives and when we're working with others. And that came up really specifically in these classes that I mentioned that I'm teaching. Again, we began in deep winter, and there was definitely this heaviness that came in. And this real deep intention and willingness by everybody involved to be in that and to really give themselves to the healing that was presented in this kind of heavy time. And we do a process when we open the program. It's a full year program, so we want to really prepare for this long journey. And part of that opening retreat is to really set some collective intentions and designate our North Star. What is it that we're aiming towards? And then what do we need to be carrying with us? What do we need to pack on this journey with us to help us get there? And inevitably laughter and playfulness are on that list of things that need to come with us. And, it was very poignant to have those come up this time, when there was such a clear heaviness. And I've seen it, and again in these moments of very deep reflection, sometimes very painful things people are working through, that, just at the right moment, something will be said or something will happen just in the room that will spark that spontaneous laughter, or that someone will choose to bring that smile in, as you were speaking to the voluntary laughter. And it shifts, it shifts the physiology, it shifts the energy in the room to a place that makes more room. I love that you started with the spaciousness of laughter, that it literally makes more space for whatever it is that's happening. And so, the idea that, grief or working through pain or deep emotions has to happen separate from laughter and playfulness, I think is actually quite misguided. When they come together, we actually open ourselves to much deeper work. And truly delightful moments that stay with us. I'm just thinking back to yesterday's class, and a student was talking about, she has a really intense gluten allergy and gets very, very ill when she eats gluten. And she had accidentally consumed something that had gluten and realized it, and like went into this like, oh, I'm going to be sick. Like, I'm truly going to be ill. And went into her Reiki practice and did, Tenehira on her belly for a good long time, and just really went into a meditative space, worked with the precepts. I'm not going to be afraid. Just for today, I'm not going to be afraid of getting sick. Just really preparing herself in all of the ways that she had learned through this work. And she didn't get sick. It didn't, like, it somehow just did not have this reaction that it always has. And as she's telling the story, it's very painful, and she's tearing up, like this is an illness that she really struggles with. And it just came through me. I got into this really like kind of mocking myself, like meditative space. And I said, just for today, I gluten not. And it was, it just broke that tension, and and it kind of sparked this whole conversation about using that phrasing of the precepts, not only to make a joke, but also to really call our attention to what it is that we don't want to be happening in our life. And so we can intentionally cultivate these moments where we take a self-reflective a stance that allows ourselves to laugh at ourselves, as you were saying, Carrie, right? The value of being willing to laugh at ourselves, and like going into this mocking kind of, oh, here I am, the guru, and just for today, I gluten not. And, just letting that be silly and fun, and letting that make more space inside of whatever's happening. It can have a really profound effect, and can be intentionally applied in our life and in our teaching.
Yeah. And it also, I was just thinking about, how always at the beginning of these podcasts, we never know who's going to talk, right? And, we stand there and we don't say anything, and then we laugh because it's awkward. And it's our way of breaking that awkwardness. And it's interesting, isn't it? Laughter. It is a tool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think going back to Michaela, your comment about the guru, not laughing at all. I think that should be one of those litmus tests. If you've got the right guru, does your guru laugh? Because if you don't laugh, sorry, they're like on a different plane. That they're not here with us, and they're taking themselves way too seriously. But I think of one of my, the people that inspire me are the ones that we like laugh so hard we cry, and we also just live so much. We enter that space of raw tenderness so much that there's like real tears that can also flow in those healing spaces. And I think there's so much richness when we do that in community. And more so than, it's good like when you're like in the hospital and watching some like of your favorite comedies or whatever and healing that way. I think that's powerful. But I also think there's something really profound about when groups of people come together and make that choice to like just make each other laugh all weekend and enjoy. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm super inspired about this upcoming retreat that I'm leading called Whale Song. And that's one of the intentions, is just coming together in community and healing and laughing in community. And I think there's nothing like that. There's really nothing. And it speaks to a non-hierarchical way of being in community as well, because if it's just like, one person providing all the jokes, I mean, it's kind of okay, but really what makes it fabulous is when we're all like joking together. And like, I love it that when you get a community together, even strangers, like if we're together and really intentional about it, within a few hours, there's already going to be inside jokes. And I love those inside jokes. They're the best. And then they just kind of build on each other the whole weekend or the whole container. I'm sure you got a few of them in your current Reiki class, Michaela. It sounds like you do, but I'm here for it. I love it.
I was just thinking, you're saying about in hospitals, that's why they have those clowns and, that go into hospitals. And because it is true, when hospitals can be so depressing, and that's not going to help our healing process. Everything's very slow, and they actually say that laughing builds the immune system, from a chemical perspective. And actually, I have a quote. It's a Taoist quote, and they say that when you smile, your organs release a honey-like secretion which nourishes the whole body. And then if you're angry or fearful, then the idea is then that you are actually secreting a poisonous thing inside of you. So, it's sort of the opposite. But I love that idea that this honey-like stuff is just flowing through us when we laugh, and it supports everything inside of us, so it's quite beautiful.
Absolutely. One of the resources that I use quite often, and I'm drawing on for a upcoming class, is the Book of Joy, written with Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And this book is all about, first of all, acknowledging that at our center we are joy, and I really liken that to the hara, to the spark of life that is at our center, that we meditate on when we're in the Joshin Kokyoho practice. And that I love this kind of layer of meaning that the Book of Joy offers, that, embedded in that spark of life is joyfulness, and that's our inherent part of our inherent way, and being true to ourselves is reclaiming that, and that it gets covered over by all of the layers of pain and distraction and difficulty and belief systems and so on of life. And that, the system of Reiki and the Buddhist practices that it was built on the foundation of are really there to help clear away everything that's in the way of that bright light or that joyful center. And the Book of Joy gives us a roadmap for how to do that, a really beautiful and elegant structure, along with a lot of practices that have a lot of kinship with the system of Reiki. But throughout the book, the author who walked along this project with these two spiritual leaders comments quite often in the book about how much laughter that there is in the room. They're having these deep conversations about grief and despair and the state of the world, and the true suffering that these two people as individuals, and then the communities that they're from, have experienced. And there's this steady flow of laughter and this steady flow of joyfulness just emanating from these folks. And, kind of to the point that you made earlier, Carrie, like, these are the teachers that I want in my life, the folks who are just a steady flow of laughter, and who can really show us that regardless of how one has suffered or has encountered pain in their life, and for these two individuals, that has been considerable in their personal experiences, that there is this spark of joy that we carry with us, and that it's accessible to us regardless of what's happening around us. I often define joy as happiness that is not dependent on what's happening. It's just there, it's present. And it's why we can find humor and laughter and smiles in the midst of really dark things, because we carry it with us. And it can get so deeply buried that we lose touch with it. Long periods of despair and depression are commonly experienced by people. I've experienced them myself. There's been long periods of time when the idea that I had a center of joyfulness that I could be accessing even in the midst of whatever is happening, that just didn't feel true. That felt very foreign for quite some time in my life. And it's been really powerful to take on a belief system that says that actually is true, even when I'm in a state where I can't access it or I'm really struggling to access it. Even holding the belief that there is this joyful laughter at my center, it is accessible. There are practices that can get me there when I really pay attention. It's been life-changing for me, and it's really big part of the center point of how I teach is like that's really what the system of Reiki is about, is bringing us to that reality, or to remembering that state. And so, yeah, really recommend the Book of Joy for somebody who wants to explore the power of joy and the presence of it in our life and how to access it even when things are really hard. And I will be teaching a free class on that topic the first Wednesday in March, which I believe is March 1st. And exploring many of these themes about laughter in that time.
I was actually looking for a joke, and I could only think of one. And
Get on us.
Everyone's probably heard it, but I thought, oh, how does it go again? Because I'm really bad at telling jokes. So I looked it up, and there was actually the Dalai Lama, who I absolutely adore. And, someone actually told him this joke and he didn't get it, which is really funny, actually. And because everyone's laughing around, and the Dalai Lama, who's normally laughing all the time, is like, yeah, but I actually don't get the joke, right? And then they had to pull it apart and explain every little bit of it. And then he goes, oh, so gorgeous. But I thought we could change it to a Reiki version. And it is, so the Reiki master goes into a pizza shop. You know the one?
Not so far.
All right. So the Reiki master goes into a pizza shop and says to the guy behind the counter, can you make me one with everything? Come on, Harry. Go on.
It's hilarious. Little play on words.
Okay. But then with the Dalai Lama, they're like, so you know what a pizza shop is? Like they're having to go through all the little different things. That's great.
You get a pizza, see, and you can, and what a lot of people do is they order it with everything on it, all of the toppings on it. So you'd say, I want one with everything, but then, there's this double meaning.
One,
right?
One.
I love it.
Enlightenment is just as simple as going to the pizza shop and ordering a pie. Just as simple, right? Like, and what I think is really special too is when we do find laughter, even in the most difficult of circumstances, like Michaela was speaking to. And I think of like funerals, it's like a good example. It's like, I think in that poignancy of like, reflecting on somebody's life, and being able to like laugh at those beautiful moments that you had with that person. And sometimes I think, like some funerals are like a party, people are like laughing and having so much fun, because of that sweetness and that poignancy of that person's life. And that we can kind of find that even between the tears, I think is just really, it's really profound. And recently I had a friend of mine died in her sleep, and it's tragic. She left behind her 2 kids, and very young kids. And but when I think of her, and when I think of the legacy of her life, was that she was always so joyful. She was just the most joyful person, and she could always laugh, and her laugh was the most infectious and like contagious laugh, an authentic laugh, like just belly laugh. And it was always just right there on the surface for her. You could just see her joy emanating from her. And so that's definitely how I want to remember her by. And yeah, I just think of And I think that also frames, maybe the meaning of life as well. Because if in those moments where death tells us, the ultimate mystery that we're here just for a transient amount of time, and we're really in touch with that, the thing that we want to probably take with us, or that the parts of life that were most meaningful were the ones where we could find that joy. And so if we can live our life from that place all the time, I think that's pretty special, and fill our whole memory book at our funeral with good times, big belly. That's certainly one of the things I'm aiming for.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, the most profound experiences of letting go of a loved one that I've experienced was accompanied by belly laughs. And it's like, if you're truly walking through the memories of a person that you've loved, and honoring them and celebrating their life, then these are the stories that are going to rise to the surface. These are the ones that are going to bubble forward, that you're going to want to tell, that you're going to want to hear from other people. And a funeral without laughter, I don't know, I think that should be our goal, to really have as much laughter as possible when we're saying goodbye to somebody that we've walked a life with. So I love that example, Carrie.
Well, I pulled up a few more memes for us today to finish off this episode. So before we all depart, we'll put them up on the screen, and hopefully they give you a little chuckle, and make sure to keep your community also engaged with laughter as well. I think it's such a good tool. Like, when we're only posting really heavy, like, emotional stuff in our Reiki circles, it's good to lighten it up, for sure.
For sure. Well, thank you for closing us out with some laughter, and for, mining the internet for the Reiki chuckles that we can close out this week's episode with. Friends, we'd love to hear your stories of laughter. In what ways has laughter supported you in your life, in your practice? We'd love to hear your stories. Tell us your best jokes. We should get a collection of them going here on the podcast. And if you appreciate this conversation, we invite you to share it around. That's the very best way you can support this channel, along with subscribing. Hey, if you haven't already, why not give it a go? It's just one click away. So friends, thank you so much for being with us. We will be with you again next week on Reiki Women Podcasts. And as we exit, please enjoy these laughs.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.